Hello, this is Darren Pulsifer, Chief Solution Architect of Public Sector at Intel, and welcome to Embracing Digital Transformation, where we investigate effective change leveraging people, process, and technology. On today's episode, Intel's Superheroes with Cameron Chehreh, VP and General Manager of Intel's Public Sector. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Darren, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be able to share some airtime with you.
Hey, when we first talked about superpowers and superheroes, I thought of something that my family did for Christmas cards this last year. All 17 of us, because I got 10 kids. There's a boatload of kids there. We did a Christmas card of superheroes. You guys will see the picture. It'll show up on the podcast video. Check it out. It's pretty funny. But we're not talking about my family superheroes. Today, we're talking about Intel's public sector superheroes and their superpowers.
I love it, Darren. So excited.
So, Cameron, let's first talk about you. Let's give just a brief background. Where'd you come from? Because you're new to Intel, and you bring some new insight into Intel and some energy into the public sector team.
Sure thing, Darren. Thank you. So as everyone mentioned, as you mentioned, my name is Cameron Chehreh. I come to Intel very humbly and honestly through what I would like to think is a pretty interesting career, Darren, but I'll let you and your audience judge that. I started my career humbly working for the world's largest privately held staffing company. What that introduced me to was a passion for technology. I had no idea where I was introduced to a software application called PeopleSoft that I became very fond of and ended up learning pretty quickly. What that led to was an extraordinary opportunity for me to help build the world's first cloud computing company. It was a company in Annapolis called US Internetworking. And I think we're really kind of ahead of our time. So much so, Darren, that 7 or 8 years before the term cloud was coined, I'll never forget the night we were having a few adult beverages sitting in Pusser's Pub in downtown Annapolis, and we created the tagline, Software as a Service. Now here's the context, 1997.
Wow.
So let that sink in a little bit. So that's pretty cool. And then I seem to have found my way through private equity, working for federal systems integrators like Northrop Grumman and General Dynamics, where I really caught the passion for supporting a mission. And that's really what drove me through those companies, was really supporting just the amazing people and customers within public sector. I've also been the Chief Technology Officer at Dell Technologies for a spell, and now very proudly and humbly, I've got the great honor to lead just an amazing, small but mighty team here at Intel Public Sector.
All right, Cameron, so why did you come over to Intel? I mean, you were at Dell. Right in the cat seat. CTO job is a cool job, right?
It is.
I've been there myself. It's a fun job, great technology, driving tech. But now you take on a big whopper of a position at Intel as general manager of public sector. Why? Why would you do that?
It's interesting, Darren. Dell's a great company. I had an amazing job there. Really, really great customers. Just a marquee brand. When Pat Gelsinger decided to leave VMware and come back to Intel, I felt the earth shake. Been in this industry a long time, and if you haven't followed just the incredible career of Pat Gelsinger, but also our great company, you had to have been asleep or under a rock if you didn't feel the earth shake. I took notice. Pat came back. He started to build a little bit of a leadership team, and he brought on Greg Lavender, who's another icon in the industry and another person that I admire very much based on their leadership, their ability to drive teams and change and transformation. And although I loved my job at Dell and still do to this day, I felt a calling because what I saw Pat doing was looking to reinvigorate an iconic American brand that, quite frankly, did a brilliant job innovating, built an industry around our technology. We just seem to have lost our way because of a lack of leadership for a period of time. And when you get a leader that takes the helm of a company like Pat Gelsinger, you know things are going to happen. And so I heard that calling, and I was very, very interested. I've been a partner and a customer of Intel for many, many years. Huge fan of the technology growing up in operations because, look, there's competitors out there, and I love our competitors, Darren. They keep us sharp and on our toes, but they're not Intel. We're the company that put the silicon in Silicon Valley. You know, we are an iconic American brand, and I heard the calling, and I wanted to be part of the work it was going to take to get us back to that brand status.
So yeah, you like hard things, don't you?
Darren, not only do I love a challenge, but I believe in the underdogs and the underdog story. There's amazing people at Intel. They don't realize they're all amazing, which is the greatest part of all of it because they have such humility and humbleness. But there's amazing people here. We're doing some extraordinary things. We have a great business, and people do the right thing all the time. And you don't find that often in companies. And the fact that we're rooted in that culturally is inspiring.
So let's talk. I mean, Pat has been talking to us, and we've taken that into the public sector quite a bit on Intel's superpowers. And I think there's even more than the four that Pat talks about, especially in public sector. Let's talk a little bit about those superpowers and how that's helping public sector.
Sure. So first of all, we recognize, right, what are the four superpowers as we see them, and why do we think they have such a profound effect on I'll say mankind and humanity in the world, right? When you think of what's going on in the world. Ubiquitous compute. So when you think of that, it's pretty incredible. Well, let me list the four. So ubiquitous compute, ubiquitous comms, I believe, right? The network piece, artificial intelligence, and I'm going to forget the fourth one, Darren. I always do. And it's so right in front of me.
Edge
To cloud. It is the most pervasive thing today. Got to have a little bit of fun with these podcasts, right?
Yeah,
Darren?
absolutely.
Making sure you were on your toes.
Yeah, thanks for the test.
Let's look at ubiquitous compute to start. You know, I always had an appreciation being technical, but also a consumer, that technology, compute really was everywhere in our life. It wasn't, though, until I joined Intel that I realized the magnitude of the importance on society that semiconductors has. For me, being an enterprise technologist, it was always about, building data centers. I got to build the eastern seaboard of the internet physically. I'm not Al Gore. I didn't invent the internet, but I sure got to build it, But I never realized until I came here, because my orientation changed. Semiconductors are in everything, literally everything. Cars, appliances, smartphones, computers, hospital, healthcare systems, digital literally semiconductors span the ecosystem of just about every verticalized market on the planet. And it is what is helping us not only live the best human experience we can live, it's actually helping us improve the quality of our lives. It's giving us better situational awareness, etc. So ubiquitous compute really means something to us more than just some cheeky marketing tagline, because we do recognize when you look at that, I'm saving people's lives when I apply our superpower to healthcare. I'm protecting the homeland and civilians when I think of applying it to a national security mission. I'm helping improve and advance scientific research to look for things like cures for cancer, maybe have us not just put a person on the moon, but maybe live on the moon one day. Who knows, right? One can dream. So it's really extraordinary. So that superpower in itself is fascinating.
It's interesting because I think COVID and the pandemic kind of put a magnifying glass on that. When you look at the sheer number of people that were still able to work and schools were still operating, albeit not perfectly, but our kids were still learning. And that's all because of silicon.
Darren, that comment, I paused because I wanted to let it linger there for a moment because of the power of what you just said. And yes, unfortunately, it took the pandemic for us to recognize the true value of it. Now, I'm an optimist eternally. I guess, born an optimist. I'm going to die an optimist, and I'm even optimistic about dying, Darren. Let me be clear about it. But the pandemic truly showed us the power of when we can apply silicon for good use, what it's done, right? Because to your point, we shifted learning from a kinetic environment, right, going to schools, to a virtual one. Well, there was a little bit of benefit that got exposed to people that we never realized, like closing the digital divide a little bit more, being able to fulfill that for, let's say, people with disabilities or may not have necessarily been able to attend traditional schooling. They're now offered this great digital format to participate on an equal playing field. And that's humbling because, to be able to help people using what you do on a daily basis as a job, there's nothing more fulfilling. And I agree with you. The pandemic really revealed a lot of these things where digital now is front and center in our lives.
This brings on to the next superpower, which is the comms side of thing. Because if you just have silicon out there without it being connected, it can't realize all the potential that can have. And we saw a huge uptick in comms, and 5G kind of got a kick in the pants, which it needed to be adopted with the pandemic as well. And I'm glad you brought that up. Even today, I've got a bunch of high schoolers. I got 3 high schoolers. They all have Chromebooks now, where before it was, well, you check the Chromebook out for this one class and you hand it in at the end of class. That's done. Every student has a Chromebook now in, I would say, a majority of the school districts out there today. This was a huge shift, and we're seeing teachers shift too because of that connectivity. So can you talk a little bit about Intel's comms? What are they doing in comms?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, Darren. People look at us as we're just this chip company. I don't know if people understand the entire portfolio we have for interconnect, right? Because interconnect, as you mentioned, is so important. I mean, the work that we do out of our NEX division and how we're connecting people is the other superpower for a reason. And to your point, look, there are times and there are certainly mission scenarios where we're disconnected, where refer to superpower number 1 makes it so important because I can then bring the technology closer to the data. And should, let's say, I'll use a military example in this instance, you got a warfighter in what's called a DDIL environment, a disadvantaged or a disconnected environment. They're still able to use the compute locally and the information they have to be able to execute on that mission. When they reconnect to whatever comms they're using, whether it's legacy 4G, 5G, the upcoming 6G, or some sort of wireless, then they can continue to get better connectivity and up-to-date information with regards to data and its transmission. But if I go to the education scenario that you talked about, Darren, interconnect is vitally important. Getting access to data, the streaming, the video content, everything else is just so vitally important. And I don't think people realize just how powerful it can be. Now, we have gaps, right? We still have areas of the country and the world that are not able to participate in the digital economy. What's fascinating is, and I'm sad to say this, closing the digital divide in the United States is becoming much harder than it is in developing countries. Developing countries are able to leapfrog us because they're investing in 5G, 6G, non-terrestrial comms. Now, there's issues associated with that as well, but they're able to invest in that and close the digital divide much faster. But to your point, that superpower is equally as important because, let's face it, connections is one of the fundamental basis of being human, and being connected to others, one of the most fulfilling things you can do.
Oh, I totally agree. And you mentioned a little bit about edge to cloud, especially with the warfighter. And this is dear to my heart too, because I've been doing a lot of work in that DDIL environment and architectures around DDIL. tell us a little bit more about Intel's and their edge to cloud strategy, and that, why is that important to us, and what do we have on the truck to help public sector in this space?
Darren, it's fascinating. Cloud and edge and, all these interesting trends that come into technology, they have a profound effect on business and on mission. And I know people have talked about cloud for a long time, and people are like, is it a fad? Is it a trend? Well, there's a big difference, right? A fad is we're all not walking around with mullets anymore, thank God. Right?
Oh, no, they're coming back, man. They're coming back.
Let's hope not, Darren, right? But a trend, a trend rather than a fad is something that has the opportunity to help us progress and grow and learn how to adopt new methodologies and new things. When I look at edge to cloud, because the underpinning capability is compute and interconnect, we play a significant role. Now, we have to do it with our ecosystem partners and our OEMs, right? But edge to cloud, what it provides, if you really harness the true power of not only the silicon, but software, you can secure workloads, you can do more high assured computing, but what it affords you the opportunity to do really is interoperability. So I can move workloads from an edge to a cloud or to a traditional data center very seamlessly when I'm using open standards and core technologies in that edge to cloud strategy. And I would offer you, Darren, we've seen this in our industry. Trends change. When we started many, many, many years ago, when computing was for the elite and the educated, it was mainframes, right? And supercomputers, because that's the only institution that could afford them. And that was okay, right? So it was this centralized model that everyone logged into. I'm old enough to remember, 5270 green screen emulators for mainframes. Then it shifted to this client server, so it became very decentralized. Cloud comes about and it goes back to a centralized, just like we did with mainframe. It's just modern. I know all the CSPs, I love them, and I know they hate when I say that, but it's about a model, an architectural construct. It's not about the technology, right? With edge emerging, I think what we're going to see for the foreseeable future, the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, is edge is what's going to really rule and dominate, because as we make things smarter, we have to take and push the technology out to the edge where the information's actually being created, and then processing happens in a centralized manner for more analytics, AI, etc. Right? We're not going to go backwards, right? Cars aren't going to get dumber. We're not going to make a gas-powered Tesla that now is a gas engine and has not got cool features and gadgets and widgets. Things are only going to progress. They're going to get smarter. So the edge is going to be extraordinarily pervasive. And as an industry, we're, again, creating self-inflicted wounds. We haven't done a good job at defining what that is yet, but we know it's emerging.
Yeah, in fact, I kind of call it like the data center without walls concept. And right. Where is my data? My data is everywhere now. And how do I make intelligent decisions based off of all this data collected and processed everywhere, right? Including a cell phone or a sensor or a camera, or in the industrial space, in motors and pumps and things like that. Those are becoming intelligent, which leads to our next superpower, artificial intelligence, right? And people don't know this about Intel. We have one of the largest artificial intelligence portfolios in the world.
Darren, this is why I love this company. Humbleness and humility is a great cultural attribute to have. But unfortunately, at times it works a touch against us. And I'm a little okay with that because I do like being a cheerleader for the brand. Look, artificial intelligence, here's a few things that people don't know what might surprise them. First of all, we have a software portfolio that is extraordinary. We have more software developers than some software companies. And there's a need for that. There's a reason, right? Because look, I love Greg Lavender. He's such an amazing CTO. He has this expression that you have silicon, but software is the soul of silicon, right? You have to allow it to do something. You have to give it life. You have to give it a purpose. And AI is a great example of it. And Darren, it's fascinating. People say, oh, well, AI, all these tech guys talk about AI. What is it? Are we going to have robots and all these? Yeah, we're going to have them. But let's talk about a practical use case. I'm lost in the UK. Happens to me often, Darren. As much as I love traveling to the UK, I travel all over the world and I can't remember half the cities I'm in, but I'm lost. I pick up my phone and immediately, because GPS is coming down on my phone, I could say, hey, Siri, or hey, Google, I'm lost. It brings up maps. It geolocates me, finds me where the closest point of civilization is. That's just a practical way of where AI, when applied for good, is doing profound things for us as people. And look, I don't have a great sense of direction, Darren, so I need a lot of help.
Now, we're also seeing, because Intel, that ubiquitous compute and the advanced comms that we have, we're seeing more of these edge devices become intelligent, and we're actually decreasing the amount of data that needs to move off the edge and into the data centers, because we are running AI algorithms to infer on the edge what we're looking for. And a lot of people don't know that we've got this kind of technology, and it's built into our CPUs directly. And also, we also have specialized XPUs, right? Neuromorphic processors that do the same sort of thing at lower wattage and higher speeds, which is pretty darn incredible.
Darren, what I love about your podcasts and this is we can have a conversation in English rather than geek speak, because I think people need to remember, when we satisfy a mission, you have to be able to understand what you're doing as an impact using the technology. And you're absolutely correct. I mean, look, I love our IPUs, our XPUs, our GPUs, our CPUs. It's pretty extraordinary what we can do, but let's practically apply it. If I go back to, say, a civilian use case, look at the Postal Service. It's shocking to me. Most people, when they look at Postal Service, they don't necessarily see on the surface an organization that's innovative. But when you think of the next generation delivery vehicles, the amount of sensors that are on that thing and what it's doing, it's as modern as Google Street View, the cars driving around mapping certain things. When you look at postal service centers that do mail sorting, how they're applying what you just described in our portfolio down to these kinetic sorting machines so that they're getting smarter about where mail goes and safer mail handling and all these other extraordinarily positive things. They're leveraging technology to scale. And it's pretty extraordinary. We look at other use cases, Darren. I think of first responders. Being able to put more silicon in law enforcement vehicles to do smarter things to create better situational awareness. It's all about affecting the human in that mission environment in a more positive way, giving them more access and information, but in a consumable, humanly consumable format. And Darren, that's the piece we miss all the time from an AI perspective. We get so geeked up talking about the tech, we forget, like the simple example I told you about in the UK before. In a few seconds, I can visually look at something and ingest 600 different data points within a split second, just visually presenting the data effectively. Yeah, and when I look at our hardware and our software portfolio, that's the power of what we do as Intel. Now, look, some of these things are aspirational. What I love about our company is we do bring a bag of parts that are very relevant. We have amazing partners in our ecosystem that help us bring that together to create real solutions. And I'm being very careful with my words here. And then you've got partners in the last mile, that critical last mile that every customer needs us to help us integrate those solutions in that mission environment. It really is a great place in the ecosystem to be because we are innovating.
So that's one thing I really want to come up with our superheroes. Our superheroes are our employees and our ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And this is something that always kind of shocked me. We have one of the most incredible ecosystems to bring solutions to market. And we don't even bring the solutions to market. It's amazing. Even some of our competitors we work with to solve really tough problems for national defense or for public service. And I think the reason why, and one reason why I love this team that I work on in public sector is because we are making a difference in lots of people's lives, day-to-day lives, the things that we're bringing about today.
Well, Darren, I mean, just a testament to that, and I hope these people don't kill me, but I need to mention them because I admire them a lot. Being able to hire the people we've been able to hire, like retired admirals and generals and chief warrant officers, we've got an amazing team here that helps us every single day remember who we serve. Look, I'm very proud of our company. I'm proud of our tech, our innovations, all these different things, and I'm proud of our people. But without those people helping us remember that it's us and the ecosystem we've created, because we did create that. Let's be very honest here. Yep. To serve this great mission, and not just our government, but governments worldwide and our allies and all those things. It's a pretty humbling experience, but you're right. It is all about the people.
Yeah, no, I agree. So Cameron, thank you for making my 100th episode enjoyable.
I'm honored.
Right, you got the privilege of being number 100.
Darren, I'm so honored. Look, these are great podcasts. I hope people are getting the value out of them that you and I know we see out of them, and it's really extraordinary. And I can't thank you enough for continuing to carry this torch.
Hey, thanks a lot, Cameron, and thanks for supporting me in it. You never know when you get a new boss whether he's going to like what you're doing or not. So,
I love you, Darren.
All right, thanks a lot, Cameron. Thank you for listening to Embracing Digital Transformation today. If you enjoyed our podcast, give it 5 stars on your favorite podcasting site or YouTube channel. You can find out more information about Embracing Digital Transformation at embracingdigital.org. Until next time, go out and do something wonderful.